Welcome to today's Toronto Real Estate Podcast, where we tackle a pivotal decision for Toronto realtors joining a real estate team versus you flying solo. We'll define what a real estate team means in Toronto's context and how it differs from working independently. We'll touch on the evolution of teams to set the stage for understanding current trends. We'll then highlight the key benefits of team collaboration, such as mentorship, shared resources, and a better work-life balance. Against the backdrop of autonomy and potential financial gains from being a solo agent. We'll discuss the trade-offs between autonomy and shared success in a team and the challenges solo agents face, like higher costs and potential isolation. Get that. Finally, we'll also share personal anecdotes to ground our discussion, ensuring a balanced view that, while leaning towards team advantages, respects the solo agent's journey. My name is Kori Marin. I am a broker and one of the co-founders of Fox Marin. This is my partner in crime, Mr. Ralph Fox, broker of record at Fox Marin, and one of our all-star, 5-star agents, Jerome Werniuk, joining us here today to add some insightful comments about this very discussion. So happy to have you both here.
So happy to be here, Kori. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. You did a great job.
Well, thank you. I'm a one-shot wonder.
Standard. Yeah.
I try. I've got to follow up on Ian Busher's footsteps, which is not easy to do.
Oh, that buttery voice.
A buttery voice I definitely don't have, but some energy I do.
Yes.
So just to remind our viewership today, please like, subscribe, and comment below. And I want to jump right into this topic today and break down these insights and equip our amazing audience with the knowledge to make the best career decision for themselves, whether that's joining a team or flying solo. So let's jump in. Are we bringing it today?
Bringing it.
Bring the heat. See that fastball, Jerome?
That's right. First hard-hitting question, Kori. What do you got?
Well, I want to, first of all, define what a real estate team is and how does it differ from being a solo agent. So, Ralph, can you just give us a quick primer on what a team structure in Toronto looks like, common setups, what's the size, et cetera? Like, what is a real estate team? Why is this discussed all the time?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think there is a generic answer to that question because there are many different team structures, setups, philosophies, but it generally is a group, generally under some type of a brand, working somewhat collectively to various degrees, where they harness resources and act theoretically in their client's best interest together as a group. But that doesn't always happen. And sometimes you can see a group of agents just collectively working under a brand. I think it's very rare that you see a full team environment in a team. So there's many different setups, but it's much different from a solo agent, meaning a agent who's just out there fending for themselves in the real estate market.
So just for a point of clarification, what's the difference between a real estate team and a real estate brokerage?
Yeah, that's a good question. So traditional real estate brokerage is where real estate agents will have their license and be a part of that brokerage, and the brokerage will handle all of the back end of a transaction, from functioning with trust accounts to handling compliance, and then to various levels giving support to the agents. And a traditional brokerage will give more basic support. Some of the newer models, some of the online models where they don't even have bricks and mortars, will tend to give less support. And then you have other newer models which are typically giving more support on the back end to an individual agent. So again, there's many different models with brokerages, but typically they're more geared, or have been in the past anyways, more geared towards supporting individual agents.
And what would be considered to be a small team within a brokerage versus a big team within the brokerage?
For sure. Teams can vary in sizes. You can have a 2-person team.
Okay.
You can have a buyer agent working with their assistant and maybe a listing agent, or maybe just an individual working with an assistant is comprised of more than one. So I think that's where you start to have the genus of discussing whether it's a team or not, when there's more than one entity or person working under a brand. And they can go up to 20, 30, or 40 agents working in a team. So that team will be working at a brokerage, but that team will assert its own identity and theoretically its own culture within the environment of the brokerage, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And that's a welcome setup for this discussion today. So thank you for that. So when it comes to teams, Jerome, how have the consumer demands and expectations impacted the real estate industry specifically to teams? And why are they important now and relevant?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just over 2 years in the residential industry, so I can't speak back prior to that. But even in the 2 years that I've been here, this is probably a true sentiment to a lot of industries and service industries is with the adoption of mobile first for pretty much any single app or industry, consumers are very much used to having information pretty much in real time. So if in the real estate context, if you're set up on House Sigma or Listed or any of the listing apps, out there and you're looking for a house or you're just perusing, you can access, listings literally within 60 minutes of them going live. You can see previous sold prices. You can make up your own market comparables. You can kind of dig into all of the information that was previously not really available to consumers. I believe there was a law change like 5 or 6 years ago allowing consumers to see sold data. But anyway, with people's expectations, with different apps like Uber, any sort of app where they need information, there's a service element. People expect that their agents are also getting information real time. And, throughout the day, I'm getting 10, 20, 30 text messages from clients being say, hey, did you just see this place come out? And I would love if I was sitting there looking at listings all day, but I'm out going to see properties, I'm out meeting people, I'm doing other things. So quite often I'm finding clients are even a little bit ahead of their agents when it comes to live updates on listings. I think that has to be different to, prior to when I was in the industry 10 years ago. You'll be able to speak a little bit better to that, but you can see that expectation be there and assuming that everybody is getting this real-time data feed and kind of monitoring it quickly. And you often hear, one more point on this is you often hear somebody say, well, I found the property before my agent did. And I'm like, great. That's awesome. That's good. I'm glad somebody found the property. You don't want an agent that's just sitting at their desk all day refreshing listings. You want somebody that's out there doing stuff. So I think that more than anything has probably shifted in the last few years and probably over the last decade since everything's gone mobile.
I love that. Ralph, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think more specifically to your question, Kori, consumers are demanding more at every stretch of their interaction when it comes to real estate. And because those demands are getting so strong, and rightly so, in my opinion, it's putting a lot of pressure on realtors to be able to respond to that. And the moral of the story is that no single agent could ever respond to all of the things that consumers are looking for in order to have a really great real estate experience. Part of that goes with response time to people, connecting on their iPhones, but it's so much more than that. People go on social media and they see perfectly staged properties and they're like, I want to have a perfectly staged property. And then they see the way it's marketed. And then they see agents out there doing significant amount of volume. And they're like, wow, I want somebody who has the experience and the track record and the infrastructure to be able to support me from every single need that I need, given I'm looking to buy and sell and things happen in real time and I need support across the board. And that really is the shift where you're seeing from individuals, agents being forced to move into teams because no one person can meet the demands that the consumers are rightly so asking for their representatives. And that's why, and if you look at any single neighborhood, any single area, it is dominated by teams. And trend is going to continue because that's how consumers are best serviced, by working with high functioning teams that are looking out and advocating for their best interest. And it's an unfortunate, reality if you are an independent solo agent. But the fact of the matter is that you are going the way of dinosaurs in this business.
I completely agree with that. And I think that's totally aligns with what Jerome was saying, just that everything moves in real time now. And one independent person driving around in their car all day is just not able to give the client experience that the client deserves in is industry where the stakes are so high and there is so much money at stake as well. So it only makes sense that there's a group of individuals looking out for the best interest of the client. And with Toronto prices being what they are and commissions being what they are, the client truly does deserve to have a quality experience from beginning to end. And then I remember when I was a solo agent way back when, I was like, how is this even possible to scale a business when you are a stager, you are a mover, you are a packer, you're a rental agent, you're a rental listing agent, you're a buyer agent, a selling agent, a social media expert, a lead generation expert, a website designer, and everything else in between. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, and you cannot cater to the demands of your clientele when you're wearing that many hats without the support of admin staff, quality buyer agents, quality listing agents, a marketing person, perhaps a social media person, and then everything else that goes beyond that as well when it comes to website management, development, video, and on from there. So that completely makes sense. And I think that sets the stage for our next segment, which is really talking about the benefits of an agent joining a real estate team. So obviously there's like a lot of collaboration and support. Can we explore the advantages of having that support network? Love the accountability. There's lots of benefits, including great mentorship, lots of opportunity for newer agents, and the ability to even collaborate on deals. Does this impact job satisfaction? Like, Jerome, you're probably the best person to answer this question. Why did you, when you moved from commercial real estate to residential real estate, look out at teams as the first option for you to make that transition? And what were you looking for when you're making that transition for yourself personally?
The simple answer is I've always liked working on teams from a young age. I played sports and I never really played individual sports. I always liked playing on a team where if you're winning, you get to enjoy that with your teammates. And if you're losing, you get to cope with that with your teammates. I think that, when I was growing up, I used to play N64 at sleepovers. Like I enjoyed playing video games with friends, but I'm not into playing a video game by myself in a room. Like that, it just doesn't, never clicked with me. I enjoy the social aspect of it. And so to me, it was basically a foregone conclusion that I wanted to be on a team somewhere in real estate. And that element of winning and losing together was the most attractive, over and above all the other benefits of being on a team. And when I was interviewing with the two of you and everyone else on the team, where my head was at was, am I going to enjoy winning and losing with these people? Like when things are going sideways and nothing's working and we're losing deals, losing clients, whatever happens, are these people that are going to turn into, ferocious monsters and kick and scream and or are they going to, dig down deep and get on with it? And when they're winning, are they going to be, claiming victory for themselves, or are they going to be spreading that around the team? And to me, you both and everybody on the team seemed to fit perfectly in line with my values around the teammates that I'd liked. I've been on a lot of teams, like 20 baseball teams and different hockey teams. I've worked at 4 or 5 different companies, organizations, and you really get a sense after a bunch of career moves and sports moves of who you work well with, what teammates are the best teammates to have, how people fit into a bit of a hierarchy where there's some leaders, some followers, everybody playing a role. And I saw that in Fox Marin and spades when I interviewed with you, and that's continued on. It's fun winning with everybody. We have our Wednesday morning meetings, and sometimes the energy is like, oh God, everything sucks right now. We're losing this. Everything's falling apart. I'm spinning too many plates at the same time. And everybody is just like, oh yeah, I know how you feel. And it's nice to commiserate. And it's also nice to talk about the wins. Yeah, everybody is proud of each other when they do win. And it's nice to have that feeling. I think real estate brokerage, residential specifically, it's a really interesting industry because I think it attracts a lot of lone wolves. And we might be getting into this deeper in the conversation, but there's not generally team players attracted to this industry compared to the person that wants to go off on their own, do their own thing, have full control over it. And I'm sure we're going to be discussing this at length, but the industry is shifting away from those types of people being successful. And I think the net new agents that are going to be successful in this industry are going to be the more team motivated type of agents coming in here and seeking that out from day one, as opposed to, struggling on their own and then recognizing a few years in that they need to make a move to a team. But maybe we'll save that whole conversation later. That was a long answer to your question.
No, it's a great answer. And I definitely wanted to hear your perspective on that. And I think obviously we're just so happy that you made the choice that you did. And I love the way that you've described our colleagues and the team that we have, because I totally believe that. And I definitely felt that it was very much a struggle as a new agent when I first started, that I started off as a solo agent, as I mentioned earlier. And the biggest shocker for me getting into the industry is everyone's like, oh, real estate, such a people relationship business. And so I was really excited for that part of it. And then I ended up feeling like I was spending hours and hours alone. And this is coming from a corporate background where you always have people around and, you've got your lunches with people and people popping into the office. I was like constantly social in my last roles that I had in the corporate world. And then I moved into real estate expecting to see a continuation of that, or even more of that, like more network, more people, more relationship building. And then I was in my car by myself. I was sitting at my computer by myself. I was waiting in concierge lobbies by myself. I was waiting at open houses that were dead by myself. And I was like, oh my God, I spent so much time alone. And there was absolutely nobody to commiserate with, that feeling of being new, the feeling of not knowing what you're doing, the feeling that this is hard, the feeling like you're not making any money. What am I doing this for? Like there was just nobody to have that conversation with. So I think if I was to repeat my career again, I would not have started off as a solo agent. I would have gone directly into a team environment for that type of support. Ralph, do you want to add anything quickly on that before we move on?
Oh my God, there's so much I could add. Yeah, like in terms of who would want to join a team, I definitely think that if you're new into the business, finding yourself around people who can motivate you and mentor you is really, really, really important. And that never stops in a proper team environment. And, I've been in this business, 15, 17 years or whatever it is. And I'll call up one of the most junior people on our team and ask them for advice on problem solving for something. Like it doesn't just go up, it goes both ways when you have that type of environment. And at the end of the day, the client only benefits. And I can tell you myself, there are many situations I even know the answer, but I just need to call somebody that I can talk it through with, who's on our team, who's looking out for the client as equally as I am. And I think having that ability to talk things through and having that ability to coach and be coached and mentor and be mentored and have that type of back and forth energy in a very dog-eat-dog business that can really, really be hard, like hard. There are days in this business, as great as this business is, there are tremendous highs, but there are mornings where you wake up and just be like, oh my God, did that really happen last night? Or am I going to have this conversation this morning? And your stomach is churning, So doing it alone really isn't possible. And I think the other thing yeah. And so I think there's a lot of advantages for somebody new getting into that type of a culture and mindset and brand and not having to worry about all the things that we had to worry to get us to where we are at, where they can just focus on growth in a certain segment, probably starting with leases and then expanding out from there. And I think the other thing that's really interesting is we've been contacted by some very senior tenured agents. And we hear different things. And sometimes it's from somebody at a more traditional brokerage and they've been there for a long time. And they're like, I just am not getting the support that I need. And I'm not getting the brand support and I'm not getting the culture and I'm not getting the mentoring. And I'm just out there by myself and it's getting friggin' exhausting. And there's only so much that I can take on. And then even it's interesting from other teams, we'll get calls from agents and they'll approach us. And from other agents on teams, it's a little different where they just feel that there's a conflict with the leadership of the team or they're not aligned with the culture or the direction that the team is going. And so even if you're on a team, it doesn't mean that it's going to be the right fit for you. Or if it is today, it doesn't mean that it will be tomorrow. So I think there's a definite appeal, but it needs to be the right environment and needs to be the right team for you. And so if you're considering getting in the business or joining a team wherever you are, really spend the time to understand the culture and the fit, because really that's why you're doing this, is to be in a culture, a supportive culture, and to be in an environment and to be in a brand that resonates with yourself. And if it doesn't, then you're in the wrong place.
Yep. Could not agree more. So, is there an opportunity once you join a team to start specializing in the aspects of the business that you love? Like, for example, our teams often split with a buyer agent and a listing agent and a leasing agent. Can people specialize that way? Is that something that would be attractive to a new agent, Ralph?
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of the things that we say to anybody getting into the business. Leases is the best place to start.
Mm-hmm.
It's how
For sure.
you learn inventory. It's how you learn to communicate with other agents. It's how you learn to communicate with your clients when you're dealing with bad agents on the other side of the table. It's how you learn the deal flow, paperwork, attention to detail. All of those things really get forged in a very low stake environment. And the great irony is that it can take more work to do a $3,000 lease than to purchase a $3 million house in Leslieville. And so, a lot of mad respect goes to people out there who are really, really, really grinding it and learning the business and paying their dues, because you do have to pay your dues in this business. And I think that's such an awesome place to start and specialize in, and then slowly over time move into buyers eventually.
And then do most buyer agents stick with buyers and then some agents stick with sellers? Is that how it normally works in a team? And I know the answer, but I'm asking the question for our audience.
Um, it depends actually on the team structure. Like there are some teams where they're only buyer agents and the leads take on the listings.
Okay.
That's not how we're structured. And if somebody has a listing, we're there to support them with our listing coordinator and everything else so that they can service their clients both on the buy side and on the sell side. And I think when you're setting your team up for success with their own relationships and their own clients, everybody wins.
And I really like the idea that people can develop into the area of specialty that they feel most drawn to and the most confident in and the most rewarded and fulfilled in as well. Like some people love to work with buyers because they love the hunt. It's like a treasure hunt. They love the kill. They love the search. And they love they love negotiating and getting that win done. And then other people really love the listing side or the selling side, where it's a bit more account management, a bit more marketing, a bit more project management. And the client relationship is very different on the selling side than it is on the buyer side. And I love the idea that if you're on a team that can allow you to grow in different specialties, that over time you have a trajectory of somewhere that you're going. So you're not just spinning your wheels doing the same thing, getting in your car and driving and doing showings and for the next 30 years. Like maybe you could find a little niche for yourself within the business. So I love that as a motivating factor. So in terms of resources, can we talk about how being part of a team can reduce your overhead? And for us, we definitely have shared resources like marketing tools, admin support, social media and CRM systems. Can we just talk about how that's advantageous for an agent joining a team? Ralph, why don't you start there, and then Jerome, you can talk to us about how you leverage that as well.
We can speak to that by example, Kori. I mean, we were independent solo agents, and we know how difficult it is to do all of these things. And back then, things weren't moving nearly as fast as they are today.
Mm-hmm.
But even back then, to be able to think about your social media and your branding and your website and writing blogs and sending out newsletters and having great relationships with your clients and understanding comps and seeing all the new listings when it comes out to market and staging properties and doing all the listing work that goes on the back end. And you'd be shocked if people actually saw how much goes on the back end, and handling all of those things at once.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. And so being in an environment of like-minded people where those resources get spread out takes a lot of pressure off of an agent and allows them to focus on what they want to do, which is generally be client facing and help them get to where they want to go, and passing off everything else. And one of the things, if you read most books on philosophy of success and how to live a fulfilled life, they tell you to figure out what you enjoy doing or what you love doing most, focused on that, and delegate everything else. And so if you're on a team and you don't want to have to worry about social media, or you don't have to want to worry about paperwork, or you don't have to want to worry about a lot of the things that would stop you from focusing on what your true passion is, then why not do that? Especially if there's synergy that goes beyond that, that just makes you stronger and that much better.
Mm-hmm. And Jerome, do you feel that is a huge plus for you personally, being on a team?
Yes, definitely. I've worked for 2 startups prior to working at Fox Marin, and such early stage that basically it was, Jerome, here's a laptop, go build the sales organization for us. And I remember my first day at the first startup typing in like how to sell software into Google, and then just kind of going from there. And 3.5 years later, we had built a sales team, CRM, marketing engine, customer success, all off of that. And I loved parts of my job and I didn't like others. And the parts I didn't like was like figuring out which CRM to use and testing 3 or 4, and then going back and figuring out how to integrate. Then we got to switch and we got to migrate all the data. And
I'll interrupt you here for a second, Jerome. And if Kori and I were wearing heart monitors, every time you would say CRM, I think there'd be a spike, both in mine and Kori's heart rates. Because
one in particular, but I won't mention their name.
No, we won't. We won't. But it is the bane of most people in our business existence, because everyone thinks the next CRM is the answer to all of their problems.
Yeah. No, and going through the pain of that, once you've got a CRM or whatever system you've got set up, you're like, I get it. Having tried to sell software to a lot of companies, they're like, nah, it's too painful to change. And now I like properly understand that. Like, yeah, no, it absolutely is. I don't care if this thing is 10 times better. I don't want to go through the pain of it. And so having to build all these resources, pitch decks, marketing, everything from scratch, I recognized what I liked and didn't like about, sales and client services, business development activities. And really throughout the pandemic, I was working for a company at the time before starting at Fox Marin that was selling virtual reality training software. And so I would literally put on a VR Oculus Quest headset and I would have mailed out to like Finland, Bulgaria, and somewhere else. And I'd get these, executives, 55-year-old people, put these headsets on, and then we'd walk through training simulator together on Zoom. It looked ridiculous. But through pandemic and lockdowns and that, and working in tech sales for quite a while, I really just desperately missed client-facing activities. Like my favorite thing to do is to be on a call or be out with clients and trying to learn about them, trying to understand them, and trying to solve problems. And so when I joined Fox Marin, and in general before that, starting to get into residential real estate, I was just like, I want as much of that time. I want that to be 90% of my day. And I will happily offload the other tasks and, pay for somebody else to deal with that. And so being able to plug into a team that has admin support, social media engine up and running, a CRM system, all the things you mentioned, where you can just plug into that and very quickly get up to speed and just get on the field and play quarterback as opposed to be the general manager, the coach, the kicker, the quarterback, and the owner. That was so nice for me. And if I was going to talk to somebody who's just getting in the industry, it was like, focus in on what you really like why you want to be in this business. And if somebody's like, I like everything, they're lying. Like there's something that they like and something they don't like. And some people love just the transactional back end of it. Some people like the meticulous organization and project management of running a listing process. And for me, it's client facing. I want to be driving around the city and, talking about my perspectives on real estate in the world. And I had clients up from, they're moving here from the US today, and they're like, so what's the political landscape in Canada like? We had like a 40-minute conversation about it.
Can I talk to them?
I
Oh,
love
no.
that stuff. I love that. And like, you think I'd rather be sitting there, project managing a painter coming in to paint like I want to hand that stuff off as much as possible and do what I love doing. And that's the main benefit that I found joining a team like Fox Marin.
And to continue with your football metaphor, that's why we call our listing coordinator, Olivia. Shout out to you, Olivia, our quarterback. And I also appreciate the fact that you just used all these football terms because I've watched enough football documentaries over the last 2 years that I knew all of those positions. And I was like, I know what I'm talking about. I'm very excited about that. I was laughing in the introduction because when I was talking about work-life balance, I giggled a little bit when I was saying it. And Jerome, you're the perfect person to answer this question, seeing that you have 2 young children at home and a full house and a full-time career, and your wife has an amazing career as well. Do you really truly think that joining a team can offer a better work-life balance through the opportunity of having shared responsibility with your colleagues?
Yes, this is a loaded question. It was a nice softball there. Yeah, I definitely do. I think a lot of it depends on what your objective is in real estate. Like if you want to make $100,000 a year and work on 10 deals a year, and that's your book of business and that's where you want to be, I think it's possible to be a solo agent and have
Totally.
the resources you've set up. If you want to scale beyond that to a certain point, there's economies of scale to a team. And I look at my time on a dollar per hour basis. Like I re-engineer this back at the beginning of every year. I have 2,400 hours to work. How much money do I want to earn? How many deals do I want to work on? How many clients do I want to take on? I never want to get in a situation where I have too many clients going at the same time because then they're not getting the adequate service. And if I ever run into a situation like that, if I can say, hey, we have another rock star who's actually better than me that focuses on this part of the market that's going to be a really good fit for you. That's a win for me because I get a little time back. It's a win for the client. They're getting the best service possible. And it's a win for the other agent on the team who got handed off somebody to work with, who's already pre-vetted. They know they're going to be a great client. And so I guess in the work-life balance side of things, my days are really hard in the evenings. My kids need to be picked up from daycare, 5 to 6 p.m. My wife works a lot of hours, and generally I need to be out of the house going to see properties at that critical time, which is really challenging. So being able to call Olivia on our team, say, hey, can you help out with this? Can you schedule this or, write a first draft of this, or call Ruben and say, hey, Ruben, I've got something in the West End. There's no way I can get across town. Can you just run over, open the door, show a client through? Call up Ralph. And I said, man, I'm losing my mind. I've got too much going on. And he's like, don't worry, let's talk it through. Let's organize this. Those resources create more work-life balance than I could have possibly had working the level I want to work at if I was just a solo agent. No question.
Excellent. Ralph, do you want to add anything quickly to that? Do we have
No,
good
I think it
work-life
also,
balance?
yeah, I'm no expert on that topic.
Like, what is that?
So, yeah, I actually just Googled it while Jerome was talking, but now I understand what we're talking about. I do think it also gives just peace of mind tying into what Jerome was saying. So if you go on vacation, if you're sick, like if you're a solo agent and you're sick, like everything shuts down. Whereas, and so does your ability to serve your client. Whereas if you're on a team and you get COVID or like all kinds of things will come up, you have full coverage and your clients are fully protected and they're seamlessly fully protected. And if, I don't know, you want to do something crazy and go on a vacation, you can actually plan that. And on the listing side, it's just amazing where we get these calls from somebody and he's like, yeah, my agent's on vacation. So I'm wondering if you could show me the property and give me, and I'm like, oh my God, like who's looking out for you, buddy?
Yeah.
So I think having that is really, really important so that you're giving a seamless experience and that you can walk in peace knowing that if something slows you down or you decide to slow down for a little bit, your business doesn't have to.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Okay, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here, guys. Do you think that teams, real estate teams, have better systems for capturing and nurturing leads than the solo agent? What do you think about that, Ralph?
I'm a little biased on this topic because we aren't big online lead gen types.
Not
And
at
some
all.
teams are very much built on that. So
Hmm.
it's hard for me to speak on that because that's just not who we are or who I want to be or how I want to live my life or communicate with people personally or business. But I do think the word systems is what I really keyed in on, because systemization is how you scale and grow your business and how you scale and grow in tandem. And I do think that the only reason why teams can get to a certain size or can get to a certain amount of success is because they have built-in systems. And I think it's those systems that give strength to everybody on the team throughout. And so, yeah, systems are really important. And I think that is one of the keys on the team side to success, is being able to tap into those systems.
I agree with that. And I think there's this misunderstanding, especially for new agents, that if they join a brokerage, that the brokerage is going to give them leads. And leads being like a buyer client or a leasing client or a selling client. And that doesn't really happen anymore because it is such a relationships-based business that most agents would work through referral, with some of them very focused on online lead generation. And as Ralph mentioned, that's not really our style or really reflects our value system. But joining a team as a new agent, I think you might benefit from the referrals that will come in from the other agents, some of the low-lying fruit that would come in from the other agents, some of the online leads that would come through the team's website, for example, or social media. I think there is an opportunity for younger people who might not have, or might be young, first of all, which is very hard to start this business if you're young, meaning probably in your 20s, where your social circle really just isn't at the price point yet where they're buying properties in Toronto. That's one thing. Or you have a small network and don't really know a lot of people, or you're relocating to Toronto from another city and you really don't know anyone here. Then being on a team where you can talk with other agents and take some of their I don't know what it like. I don't want to call it low-lying fruit because that sounds like a negative thing. Some of their, what's the best way to
Things that,
describe it?
yeah, some of the situations or clients that they're too busy to handle.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think there is opportunity for a younger agent to be able to benefit from some of that communication on the lead side. Jerome, did you want to add anything about leads?
Yeah, no, I think that outside of, somebody doesn't have a network, there's also people that just are not good and don't like doing business development, that don't like going out for
Yeah.
coffees or cold calling people or door knocking
Oh,
or like the traditional old school real estate lead gen tactics. And like, I've made thousands of cold calls in my life. I don't like doing it. I don't want to do
the
that anymore.
worst.
No.
And
Wait, can I tell you guys a story quickly about cold calling?
please.
So in my old job, I had to cold call all the time, but I hated it. Like cold calling and door knocking are like the antithesis of who I am. Like I would do anything but that, honestly. And so I used to have to cold call all of these like mom and pop retail shops in the US about these clothing lines that we were selling. But I was like, so just, oh my gosh, calling, it was so nerve wracking. I didn't want to do it. So what I would do, so I take the call sheet, which was printed out in front of me, and I had like a ruler and a pen, and I would have to call everybody, is I would like purposely ask for the wrong person when I called the store. So I would call like where I was calling Austin, Texas, and I'd be like, "Oh, hi, is Sarah there?" And knowing that I was supposed to be asking for Jody, and they'd be like, "Oh no, there's no Sarah here." I'm like, "Are you sure?" And I would like go back and forth about Sarah or Jody, and like enough time so it looked like on the long distance phone call that I had made the call, that I'd been on the phone for like 90 seconds, but I had never mentioned the company or anything. And then I would just cross it off the list and moved on. And I just basically crank called all day is what I did. Like every day I hated it so much. Anyways, that's an anecdote off to the side, but I agree. Cold calling is the worst. Go on, Jerome, please tell.
Special skill set for sure. Somebody that's successful and enjoys doing it. Anyway, there's people that don't like those traditional activities or they don't have a network. But I want to focus in on the people that enjoy the aspects of real estate that aren't lead generation, that are not like the initial touch point. Like there's people that are fantastic executors and they have a deep, deep knowledge of the market and they give incredible advice, but you wouldn't know it unless you had an hour of time with them. Like they might not come off as a polished person who comes up to you at a party and, gives you the warm and
Schmoozes you.
fuzzies and schmoozes you, but they're just an absolute assassin in the industry. And that type of person will have a really hard time getting started in the business. But once they get started and they have a client base and their clients love them, they can hit the afterburners at that point. But joining a team where they can remove some of that pressure of needing to figure out how to keep the lights on and do enough deals in their first couple of years, I think that's a great pathway for somebody that is very nervous to go out and drum up business themselves. It's one of the main advantages of joining a team. And that works perfectly if you have this balance on the team of people that are out there bringing up, pulling in clients from thin air, and people that are excellent at executing, and everybody's happy in their role. That's perfect balance for a team or a duo or whatever the case is. But I think that's a really good opportunity for somebody that's coming into the business.
I totally agree.
Not wanting to do BDR stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing that agents really can capitalize and leverage if they're smart and they're on a great on a great team, is capitalizing on the team's reputation and their brand. And so again, this helps with business development because you can lean into that as being a resource for something that already has great social media presence and lots of Google reviews, and people are familiar with the name or the logo or whatever it is, and you can lean into that experience. And the other thing you can really lean into as well as a new agent or somebody who's only been in the business for a few years is if you have a big pitch coming up, or you have an opportunity to work on a development site, or you're maybe meeting with a buyer that you feel is out of your league, you can always bring in somebody from the team that might have more experience at that price point or that location or that neighborhood, and they can help you win the business. So you have that additional support, so you can leverage the team's story. And you're not just stuck with your own laurels and being like, oh my God, I've only been in the business for a year and a half. And I have no Google reviews, no online presence, and no website. I'm never going to be able to get this $10 million listing. But perhaps if you are a year and a half into the business and you're on a team that has all of that backing, then for sure you can go kill it and score yourself that $10 million listing with the right partner on your side. So that's another big, big piece of this. All right, moving on. So I want to talk about and just look at this from the opposite lens. What are the advantages of working as a solo agent? We are obviously pro team around here because we are a team and we love our team and we're proud of our team. But there are advantages of working as a solo agent. So can we highlight maybe the solo agent's freedom in making some of their business decisions, maybe managing their schedules? Ralph, do you just want to touch on what that could look like?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the stats, probably 80% of the 75,000 realtors that are out there live below the poverty line. And so there can be many reasons why somebody might want to be a part-time agent or look like they're busy when they're not, or be engaged when they feel like being engaged and not engaged when they don't feel like being engaged. They don't necessarily want to feel any pressure to do anything, and they just sort of like to take things at their own speed, and they like to take things as they come, and they may have money from elsewhere, or their family situation might not dictate that being an agent is how they put food on their table or provide for their family, or they just don't feel like pushing in this industry. Maybe it's a part-time job for them. And so it's just easy to just sort of coast along in that type of scenario. You do run into your super A-type solo agents who do produce. They are out there, but they're becoming more and more of a rarer breed. Mm-hmm. But when you do come across them, you do have to have a little bit of respect because you know how much they're carrying to do what they're doing at the level that they're doing it. And when you meet those agents and they're doing a really good job of it, you definitely have to give them the hats off. But the challenge that I've seen with individual agents is typically if they have a good year, the next year will be really poor. And if you look at agent production, even the strong solo agents, they tend to get really busy and they focus on their clients at hand, and then everything else ceases. and then the next year they have to start from all over again. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of the advantages from a team perspective is that you always have that base level of consistency, so you're not riding that instability as much. And I think that's one of the challenges that the big producing single agents are facing when you look at their production.
And do you think there's a limitation on a team member developing their personal brand within the team versus a solo agent that can explore their creativity and brand development however they want? Are teams a place where that's squandered, that you really just can't tell your own story within the business model? Jerome, do you feel that way? There's limitations that way?
I don't think so before a certain point. I think that all my clients know I work for Fox Marin, but every person on the team in some way is involved in somehow in how I'm servicing them as a client. But 98% of their interaction with Fox Marin is me. And so they correlate, well, everybody else at Fox Marin must be similar to Jerome and vice versa. So I don't think that my personal brand, if you will, is kind of overshadowed by something that I could never outgrow that. I do think, though, that at some point on certain teams, people do hit a point where like their brand is even bigger than the team's brand. I haven't been a part of that, but in the commercial world, when I was working in it was a boutique brokerage that eventually got acquired by Cushman Wakefield. Like some agents there were just absolute monsters on their own. And there was not a lot of brand value that came with the brokerage itself. And I don't want to compare commercial and residential brokerage because they're very different, but the team aspect of our brokerage did not carry as much weight as the personal brand of some of these agents. And I do think at a certain point, agents kind of excel past that. I don't think it's a this or that, like one's better than the other. I think brands can grow together, but traditionally you don't see a lot of teams kind of lasting 20 years in residential real estate where everybody stays the same the whole way through. People grow, they change, there's differences of opinion. I think that usually it comes down to splits and ego as why teams break apart more so than it does of, one person's brand is exceeded past and is now larger than the team's brand.
Yeah, that's a very good perspective. And I think from our lens at Fox Marin, I love the idea that everybody has their own ecosystem underneath the brand and that everybody can tell their own story and develop their own businesses within the business and however they want to do that, whether that's client facing and like dinners and coffees and building relationships that way, whether it's social media. Some people just love that and building out, I don't know, a video story or whatever that might be. Or perhaps like running their own blog segment or whatever it is. I don't even know. But like anything like that, I think we're just so open-minded to everybody on the team developing their own business within the business in the best way that will service them and their clients so that they feel the most rewarded and fulfilled in what they're doing. And the idea of ever limiting that, I think would be just very suppressing for people and very de-energizing. That's for sure. Ralph, do you want to add anything to that before we move on?
Yeah, I think the major issue where there's issues within a successful team is when you have a clash of cultures or where the leadership is not moving forward or progressing, where the team is continuing to progress ahead of the leadership and they see that they're lagging. But I think, it in my opinion, it's more about the soft stuff than the hard stuff. It's less about the splits and it's more about how people are treated and what the vision is, and is the vision aligned, and are people being treated decently, and are they allowed to have their own voice and opinion and be heard at the table, and are they considered to be stakeholders in the direction of the company and the brand. And I think those tenements are so important long term that makes an environment or team successful versus not. And I know who reaches out to us that are on teams, and I know why. And it's more because of those reasons than necessarily about straight out splits or any of that. Some teams leaders rule with like an iron fist, and they're like, you can't do this, and we have to be the face of everything, and it's us. We have to be on all the listings. And other teams are more laissez-faire, and other teams want to see the success of everybody on the team and let them grow. And that's always been our motto is that if the team grows and everybody's growing, I'm not talking financially, I'm talking like personally. I look at
Me
everyone
too.
on the team and I look at where they were a year ago or 2 years ago, or I look at myself or Kori and I'm like, wow, we've grown as people. Like, it's that type of growth that really, really is compelling. And it becomes infectious to the outside world and people wanting to work with you because they feel that you're growing and you're challenging and you're questioning and you're thinking and you're provoking. And I think having that in an environment is awesome.
Yep. I could not agree more. I love celebrating everybody's wins on the team, and I could not care less if my name was on the listing or my face was on the listing, or I love posting on our Instagram page all of your wins, like Jerome and Jessica and Ruben's wins. I just love that. I love telling the story of your wins so much, way more than talking about me and Ralph and this and that. I love celebrating that. It's almost like a motherly instinct I have that I'm like, I want to tell this win and celebrate this for you. So 100%, I don't feel any ego about that. And I agree that that is one thing that will really get in the way of a team truly working collaboratively. I want to just address the elephant in the room before we tie this off, because you both touched on splits just briefly. And I know there's agents listening to this being like, well, I don't want to join a team because I won't make as much money. Like, is there higher financial reward as a solo agent? Or are you better off joining a team? Like, there's got to be a cap as to how much money you can make as a solo agent. And I know, Jerome, you sort of mentioned, if you're happy doing 10 deals a year, then fine, you can make your 100K and be good with that. But there's got to be a time where the pendulum switches because you can only handle so much as a solo agent. Let's just talk about that before we tie things off for the evening. Ralph, do you want to start there? And then Jerome, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that too.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I always find interesting when people look at a business, they only think about the money coming in and they never think about the money coming out. And it's like, oh, look, you're in real estate. You made $20,000 on this transaction. Or, oh, look, this guy owns a restaurant and the restaurant's packed. He must be making so much money. Or, there are so many situations where I see people from the outside looking at a business and they never really start to compute what are the costs to generate that associated revenue. And when you look at real estate, it's a lot higher than I think people from the outside could even consider when you take into account before taxes, just all of the built-in costs involved. And so I think the advantage to being on a team is having those costs spread out and scaled in a way that you're not even feeling it because they're operational costs that the team or the brokerage is having to pay for, rather than yourself when you're just thinking about more so your commissions in versus out. But I do think that the ability to have that support on all the levels that we discussed leaves you the opportunity for exponential revenue growth with a flat line of expenses, mostly being your splits.
Yes. Hallelujah to that. Jerome?
Yeah, the taking costs or expenses you'd have annually and just shelling those expenses out directly to assistants or marketing firm or whatever the expense line is, and wrapping it into just a percentage on every deal or a annual percentage, whatever it is. It just removes another one of those things that I don't want to deal with. Like, I spent a lot more time figuring out what car we were going to lease than what house we were going to buy. And I would hope to think I'm a bit of an expert in the house buying realm, but like, I spent way too much time doing research on the car, the car we ended up getting. And I became like very picky, and I was like dissecting the weight of it. I'm like, this is a car. Like, do you like it or not? Like, if I simplify the thing, and if I had to deal with 10 different vendors every single month that I'm paying expenses to and audit that and make sure I'm not getting overcharged and dealing with like all the back end of that, maybe I would save money compared to my splits, but I just don't want to take on that hassle. Like, I'd much rather hand that off. And if the team is paying for it and they have economies of scale and they can get better rates on stuff, and we have full-time assistants or almost in-house moving or photography or whatever the case is, that just, it removes a piece of friction that I don't want in my business. And I'm happy to pay for that for that privilege. If you just were a spreadsheet person and look at what do you get, as a sole agent versus what you get on a team when you're paying bigger splits, like if you're looking at purely from a spreadsheet perspective, it makes sense to go the solo agent route. If you take the intangibles into it and sharing team wins and not dealing with other things, and you add in the amount of hours it takes to deal with back end stuff that you don't have to worry about on a team, it's a much different equation. And to your point, Ralph, when you hit a certain scale, there's just only so many hours in the week or the month or the year that you can be doing things. And in order to scale up and do more deals, you just have to hand off bits and pieces of the transaction and the client experience to other people on a team in order to scale and continue to deliver a high level of service. So, I don't know if the summary answer to this whole podcast of should you go team or should you go solo agent, it depends what you want. If you want to be a solo agent, go be a solo agent and figure out if you like it. If you want to join a team and figure out if you like it. But hopefully what we've talked about today will give some people guidance into the pros and cons of both.
I think the best advice that I could give to someone is do your research, do your due diligence, meet with 5 or 6 teams and understand how they operate and see if it's a good fit. Go talk to 5 or 6 brokerages and see what type of support they offer you as a solo agent. And then compare the two and figure out where would you be happiest. And remember, you're an independent contractor, so you're not locked into a 10-year contract, and your situation can be fluid. But I think the mistake that most agents make is they just jump into the first thing, or because they know someone, that's where they end up. And that's a recipe for a mistake. But I think if you're very thoughtful and meticulous about what your goals and objectives are and what you like and what you don't like and who you want to surround yourself with and who you don't, I think that's a really good starting place. And then just have a lot of conversations and meet people and talk to people on teams and talk to independent agents and figure out what makes the most sense for you. And if it doesn't work, then in 6 months, you can make a shift.
Yep. That's really good advice. So one word from the three of us, what is the one benefit to you personally for being on a team in one word, Ralph?
Camaraderie.
Jerome?
Support's the obvious one, but so I want something a little more substantive than that. Come back to me, maybe I'll have another one.
Okay. I'm going to say collaboration.
Support.
That means it's the right word.
It's the right word.
Came back to it twice. So there you go. And there you have it.
Well, thank you both so much for this awesome discussion. We explored the critical decision between joining a team or you venturing out there solo, whether you are drawn to the collaborative spirit of a team or the independence of a solo agent. We hope this discussion has illuminated the path that best aligns with your career aspirations. Remember, understanding your options, just like Ralph just said, is the first step towards your success. Stay tuned, please, for more insights and stories from the Toronto real estate lens. Please like, comment, and turn on those notifications. Jerome and Ralph, thank you so, so much. Ralph, what do you always like to say at the end of our podcast to remind our audience to do?
Okay. Please be sure to hit that like button or smash that subscribe button down below. And I'm going to pass this over to you, Kori. What do you like to say right at the end?
I always like to say to contact us anytime because we're super nice and very helpful. Thank you both so much. Have a great day. And supportive.
A lot of fun, guys. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Bye.